All right, inching closer and closer. It's getting to feel real right now. The divisional round coming up. Bills playing host to the Ravens, looking to advance to the AFC Championship. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone Podcast. Andy Young with me as always.
Hey, this is what it's all about. This is the matchup we expected to happen. This is the matchup we've been waiting for. Redemption on the minds of the Bills. Well, at least to Bills fans. I think the Bills themselves are focused singularly on what they have to do to get this win this week.
No fandom involved on this, Andy, but just as an observer of football looking at this matchup, it's a battle inside my brain right now, trying to figure out how the Bills are going to get this job done finally in advance of the AFC Championship for the first time since 2020, when they then beat the Ravens to get to take on Chiefs. Completely different feeling now. Maybe you can convince me as we go through this for a while on how the Bills will be able to pull it off. But I don't know. To me, it's the history of what's happened the last few years of getting to the divisional round, having home games, and having an opponent that had your number during the regular season. I know the Bills beat the Chiefs during the regular season, when they ended up beating them in this round. But it's just hard for me to look at Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, the trouble that presents to a Buffalo Bills defense that, they've been playing better against the run as the season wore on, but I don't know, man. Something's got to be done.
I can make the case here because Josh Allen is the best player on the field.
Okay.
At the most important position. Playing the best right now. I think that Josh Allen is going to do what he does in this game. And it may be a shootout. I don't know. But I also think that the Bills learned something from that previous game. And they're going to come in, whether that's a mentality, whether that's a scheme, whether that's an alignment adjustment, whatever it is, and be able to cause some sort of difficulty for that Ravens offense, which they weren't able to the first time. And I think offensively for the Bills, they're going to be able to find some things. They're a much different team in the way they've been playing throughout the year. Everybody ate came to fruition.
Yep.
And it's working. Ravens are really good. Don't get it twisted. And I would not be stunned if the Ravens beat the Bills. But I do think the Bills have just as good a shot to beat the Ravens. They're at home.
Right.
It's going to be really cold. You've got Josh Allen. And defensively, you've got a bunch of your players back that you didn't have in that first game. Say what you want about backups and next man up. When you're losing all-pro caliber players like Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson, against that team, you need those guys.
The one thing, the weather is one of the things that gives me a little inch over to the Bills and how much has changed with Amari Cooper wasn't on the team then, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the injured guys. Khalil Shakir got injured in that game, kept playing.
Taylor Rapp was hurt in that game.
Josh Allen, no one knew what was wrong with his hand then. That's just a couple of weeks after, breaking his hand against the Arizona Cardinals? I don't remember 100%, but I think he was doing something with handoffs at that point in the season to protect his left hand, where it was kind of an awkward exchange with him and the running backs too. If not that game, maybe the game before. But that was still early in this whole thing when it was all up in the air about what was going on with that left hand.
Look, they went into Baltimore riding high, 3-0, beat Arizona, beat the brakes off the Dolphins, absolutely destroyed the Jaguars. Ravens, their season was kind of on the line almost at that point. They were 1-2 going into that game. They were just getting it figured out. Their defense had struggled up to that point. They were struggling to a degree. And that was a huge game for that team, and they got up for it, and Buffalo did not. And that was just a bad day for the Bills. How often do you see the Bills get blown out by 25 points? Basically never.
Don't.
It's happened like twice in the last 5 years.
I remember that post-game podcast. You presented that to me.
Right.
Because I had said, this is one of those ugly blowouts. And you pointed out that, Kevin, you're wrong. The team doesn't have ugly blowouts.
Right. There is a ton of pressure on both these teams. I wouldn't say either team is like playing with house money or there's any less pressure, because for all the talk about how the Bills can't get over the hump and get back to the championship game and ultimately get to the Super Bowl, the Ravens haven't really been able to get over the hump either. They've made it to the championship game once or twice.
Yeah.
But they've been knocked out in the playoffs early too and not lived up to the expectations. So for Lamar to do what he needs to do to be known as one of the greats, to add to his MVP legacy, they've got that pressure too to get to that next level. It might not be exactly the same because the Ravens in their history have won 2 Super Bowls, but this group of Ravens, as it's currently constructed, has not, other than Harbaugh.
One of the things that I look at that I'm holding on to going into this as well is the losses the Ravens had. There's a reason why the Bills are the 2 seed and the Ravens are on the road this week. Lose the opener to the Kansas City Chiefs. Lost to the Raiders the following week.
Right.
Lost to the Cleveland Browns. Lost to the Steelers once and lost to the Eagles, who's a playoff. I mean, the Steelers had their little run there, I think, Andy, but I think ultimately the Steelers, as much as we hated on them at the start of the year, and
can I be vindicated? Because all through that, I said they were horrible.
Yeah.
They were horrible.
Oh, I'll vindicate you, my man.
Acknowledge me, as Roman Reigns would say.
So that's another thing. But as I was kind of talking about at the beginning, history says that this is where the Bills season ends. I started this week joking around, telling everybody, well, this is it, guys. This is the last week of the Bills season. It's been this way for years. It's just a negative attitude at the beginning of the week. As the week has gone on, I've been searching for ways, and how much the team has changed since then. But the pressure right now of enough's enough at losing in the divisional round, make it back to the AFC Championship, and the Baltimore Ravens are the best team left to get to the Super Bowl, I think, no matter who wins. If Houston wins or if the Chiefs win and keep home field advantage, I think it's the Ravens. I think both teams are looking at this. I think the Ravens are saying the Bills are the best team in their way from getting to a Super Bowl, and the Bills are saying it about the Ravens.
The numbers say these are probably the 2 best teams in football, and we're looking at a matchup for the right to go to the championship game in the divisional round of the 2 best teams in football. Offensive EPA per play, the Bills and the Ravens are right next to each other. Cross that on the chart with defensive EPA per play. The Bills and Ravens are right next to each other. It's really, really close between these 2 teams. And I cannot see a scenario where the Bills get blown out in this game. I don't see it. Could something happen late? Sure. But I think the Bills, it's hard to beat a team twice.
I agree with that. That's another... It's tough in the NFL.
And I would say home field advantage, and the Bills have been awesome at home, undefeated this season, but they've had home field advantage in the divisional round the last 2 years and lost.
Is there a different feeling to you going into this game that maybe not only lessons learned from losing to the Ravens earlier in the season, but lessons learned from other divisional round playoff losses? I mean, like I said when we did the live podcast at Big Ditch last week, shout out Big Ditch and the people who came out, there were issues surrounding the Bills the last couple of years going into the postseason that you face a really inferior team in the wild card round, but when push comes to shove, you had the DeMar Hamlin thing, and then you end up facing the Bengals. I believe I'm right with that. Mm-hmm. That was the Bengals. And then last year you faced the Chiefs after basically needing to win for a little over a month just to get a playoff spot with injuries galore. Like, who was playing linebacker for the Bills against the Chiefs? And the Bills still had the chance to tie the game up and force overtime.
A.J. Klein.
Was going to Disney World or something like that.
Dorian Williams.
Right.
Right? And no slight to those guys, but they're not Matt Milano and they're not Terrell Bernard.
Right.
The Bills' health is critical in this game. The Ravens are healthy too. The Bills, only guys on the injury report really are Alec Anderson. He was limited in practice Wednesday with a calf. He's their 6th offensive lineman. Big part of what they do, they run 6-0 linemen more than anybody in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Davis still in the concussion protocol. Their number 2, number 3 running back, however you want to look at it.
Right.
And Brandon Codrington. He's back. He seems to be full go, according to Sean McDermott, as your kick and punt returner. So that's one less thing you got to worry about. So really it's down to Alec Anderson and if Ray Davis can come through concussion protocol in time. Ravens could be without Zay Flowers. We don't know. They're a Pro Bowl receiver.
Right. Knee injury to Flowers. He missed the game against the Steelers. Jim Harbaugh has already said Zay Flowers doesn't need to practice this week to be good to go on Sunday. But even at that, Zay Flowers not 100% or no Zay Flowers at all, I think is a big play in this matchup going into this because you get Zay Flowers not on the not on the field at all or not on the field as much. This takes a different look without a Pro Bowl wide receiver out there.
Yeah, if you watch the way that they dismantled the Steelers, they weren't doing it over the top as much and through the air the normal way that they do and relied more on Lamar running the football. Obviously, Derrick Henry had a huge game, over 180 yards in that game, and the Steelers were almost non-competitive for the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be big. That changes the way that the Bills' defense has to play them. Then you can load up more on the front, on the box, trying to stop those 2 guys up front without the biggest threat that they have downfield. Zay Flowers is a good downfield threat. He's good intermediate areas. He's a nice player. Bateman, good player too, but he's not Flowers, and there's not 2 of them out there.
Right.
And then you're talking about, the tight ends with Andrews and Likely, which are both good, but they're not deep
Nelson
downfield.
Aguilar.
Right.
Nelson Aguilar seems like he's been playing since 2000
right.
to me.
So they've got it, and Justice Hill is tough to stop too, right? So, that changes the complexion of the way the Bills' defense has to play them. And you worry a little bit about the back end of the defense, right? We saw it last game. Taylor Rapp and Rasul Douglas got beat deep by the Broncos. So that is a concern. So if you take their top outside weapon away, that's a bonus for the Bills if that happens. If he's limited, if he's not 100%, that might help them.
Flowers or no Flowers, do you see the Bills' defense approaching this differently than they normally would with getting the 3 linebacker set out there with what the Ravens present? Me, myself, I'm a guy to stick to what you do, but I get maybe having to change up for this scenario.
I think they're going to be willing to change up during the game if they need to. I think they would like to stick with their base set, which is their nickel, which is Taron Johnson and 2 linebackers in Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. I think they're going to be more willing to mix it up, series to series, play to play, depending on the situation of the game. I think you might see some Dorian Williams. I think you're going to see some spy from Matt Milano maybe playing as a lineman. We saw that against the Broncos and Bo Nix, where Milano actually played basically defensive tackle, and then he just kind of hang around the line and wait for Nix.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to chase him down a couple of times. Nix did break free a couple of times, but it was nothing outrageous.
Right.
You're going to have to figure something out with Lamar because he is so incredibly good at slipping that little tackle in the backfield and then, making one move and then darting up the middle.
It's going to be cool to see with those guys missing that Week 4 game. Lamar over 50 yards rushing in that game on top of Derrick Henry nearly 200 yards rushing. So, I mean,
it's incredible.
That's the thing. That's the sticking point. And I know.
You just think that that's going to be too much.
I think there's too much that can be done out of it with Lamar, the whole knock on Lamar early in his career was his passing. I don't think if you make it one-dimensional where he has to pass, that's the right play on Lamar anymore. That's what I think is killer about this as opposed to times in the past.
But they're not. It's not like they're unbeatable. They've lost 5 times this year.
That's why I'm telling you, I have this battle in my brain.
He's incredible. They are incredible. Like, they could very well beat the Bills, but I don't think that there's no way to stop them at all.
I also think a lot of people say I flip-flop on things, and I do because I talk myself in and out of things, but I think the Bills and how they've played in big games can set up a game plan for this and actually shut the Ravens. I know.
What are you talking about? You just said that there's no way they can shut it down.
But now I'm like looking at some of the big games during the year, like the Chiefs game, the Lions game.
Well, they didn't shut down the Lions.
They did early.
Yeah, and then let them back in.
Well, yeah, but to me that was Bills' defense started playing softer in the second half, and the Lions took advantage of it. And then it became a game again, and then, they had to do what they had to do the rest of the way. But I thought the initial way the Bills started that game, you'd take that 100 times against the Ravens this week, how they started against Detroit.
Well, how about this? Say the defense isn't that much better, but your offense is. Then we're talking about a game.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about a Lions game or a Rams game where it's 38-35, 42-41, something like that.
Right.
You absolutely could see that. I think the Bills' offense, as much as we want to talk about the defense and stopping Lamar,
right,
what the Bills do offensively is just as critical because Lamar and the Ravens, they're going to get theirs. Unless McDermott and company put together an amazing game plan, and Greg Rousseau and Ed Oliver go off and they corral Lamar, the Ravens are going to put up some points.
So I'm driving back from Bills practice. I'm sitting there in the car, and I'm like, let me flip the scenario in my head. And if I'm a Ravens fan, what I'm afraid of watching the Bills. It's obviously Josh Allen. But now I'm like, well, James Cook has been able to rip stuff off, and the Bills don't have a Zay Flowers that you have to worry about. They have a multiple different ways. So whatever you decide, look at me. I'm changing my mind myself. I don't even need.
I told you I was going to make the case and convince you that the Bills can win this game. The Bills, I think, are equipped offensively and absolutely will have a better performance than they did the first go-around. I don't see Josh Allen in this big spot laying an egg. It just doesn't really happen in the playoffs other than early in his career, and that Bengals game was horrible. I think that the Bills' offense is as equipped as they've been to do this. Everybody eats. Cooper, Shakir, Kincaid, Knox has been big.
Mm-hmm.
Mac Hollins has been big.
Samuel showing up.
Right, Curtis Samuel is all of a sudden in the mix. Keon, he's not great right now, but he's serviceable, and he's there, right? He's important. And then you look at the way they use the running backs. You look at Ty Johnson, continuously making big plays. The nose for the end zone of James Cook and the threat that he is to break it every single time. So to me, and the Bills' offensive line is playing great. So to me, the Bills' offense is just as equipped as they could be to beat this Ravens team. They have to score some points. If they don't score and they put up 10 or 15 or 21 points, it's probably not enough. So to me, you got to get in the 30s.
Bills' offensive line did the job against this dreaded Broncos pass rush in the wild card round. Face another challenge, though, Andy, with this Ravens front four.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens are rugged. They're playing much better than they were at the beginning of the year. Obviously, they handled the Bills pretty well. But, I mean, you look at the way Kyle Hamilton plays at safety after he moved back from the nickel spot back to safety. That kind of unlocked their defense. Marlon Humphrey is fantastic. The big guys up front are playing well. I mean, these are two really good teams. Full of all pros on the Ravens side.
Right.
Not the Bills side. There's a little chip on the shoulder about that.
Which you'd notice talking to the Bills and looking at the Bills and what their motivation is. Of course, the motivation get to the AFC Championship game. The other concern that I have was how they performed in the red zone against the Broncos, settling for field goals a couple of times when they were right on the doorstep to get touchdowns, but settled for field goals. And I don't think that's going to play out too well if that's how things are unfolding against the Ravens.
Yet they still put up 31 points.
Which is mind-boggling.
Right. So I'm not really concerned about that. Yeah, maybe you got to kick a field goal or two. But if you're putting up 30-ish, you're right there. You're going to have a chance to win this game.
I'm writing a script in my head while we're talking about how this game is going to go. I'll save it for when we talk about some of the stuff at the end, Andy. But, man, I think I'm convincing myself to swing this one the other way.
No, don't do it, because we need to have this debate and discussion throughout the week, and then
I know. I know.
It's funny because usually I'm the one that's like pouring water on the hype and the hoopla, and you're very optimistic about the Bills.
Here's my whole thing. The whole season I've been talking about them getting to the Super Bowl. This is the year. You got to believe. Even a week ago, Andy, I was saying that whoever the Bills have to face in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl, they should be able to handle and get back to the Super Bowl, and everyone's headed down to New Orleans. But then I watched the Ravens-Steelers game Saturday night, and I started to feel a little different. Watched the Broncos get a touchdown on their opening drive on a deep ball, and I'm like, there's areas here that I'm not a big fan of.
Did you want them to shut out the Broncos?
Well, I didn't want to pass over the top of the defense.
I know.
By a rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver.
And after that, you know how many points they gave up? 0.
0.0.
After 5 plays, they gave up 0 points after that.
Right. But, again, that's the Broncos, not the Ravens.
You're right. That the Broncos' offense is nowhere near close to the Ravens. All I'm saying is the Bills' offense is going to have to win this game. The defense has to be a little bit better. You can't give up 200 yards rushing and 300 yards as a team, basically.
Right.
I mean, Justice Hill ran on them. Lamar ran on them. You got to get that a little in check, but you got to put up points as an offense.
Well, that was the whole problem with that game back in week 4. As you might recall, come out for the second half, the defense with 2 stops in a row. The offense did 0. Ran that trick play with Josh Allen, who looked like he was injured as well, and that's when the wheels came off. The Bills were still in it at that point.
It was 21-10.
Right.
You're in that game. Like, it's not ideal, but you're down 2 scores.
Right.
And then it fell apart.
And now the offense is totally different, so we should expect more. Oh, man.
I just expect Allen to have a big game on the biggest stage.
He always does. Why wouldn't he?
I think he's going to have a big game. I think the Ravens, there's going to be some moments. It's going to be tense. I don't expect the Bills to win this thing easily.
Mm-hmm.
I just think offensively they're cooking, and they're going to do just enough, the defense, to keep the Bills' offense in that zone where they can win it late. And I think put the ball in Allen's hands and let him do what he does, because he's been fantastic.
It's the game of the year, right? The 2 MVP candidates going head-to-head, different styles of mobility and stuff, but both can pass. I mean, Josh Allen, to me, passing-wise, is unbelievable right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Lamar is too. I mean, these are great players.
Right.
The MVP debate, I want to bring this up too, has been sickening.
Yeah.
The vitriol between the fans, the fan bases, like, why are you destroying each other over this? It's a freaking award.
Right.
It's not the Super Bowl. It's not what actually matters. Lamar's awesome. If he wins MVP, he deserved it. I think it's Josh, but it's close. If Josh wins MVP, it's not about any of these other things. I've seen racist stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible. The way that the national media talks about this thing has been horrible.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
been nauseating for like 6 weeks. It's horrible. Over something that doesn't really even matter. It's writers talking about this stuff.
It's those morning football shows.
Oh, God. And then, like, to go on X, like, I've kind of had to take a break from X this week. And even the last couple of weeks. I think I said a few weeks ago, I got to take a break. I'm going to mute MVP and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson because it's sickening the way people talk to each other online with the veil of a computer screen.
Right.
You would never say that.
Keyboard tough guy.
You would never say anything like this to someone's face or about someone to their face.
Right.
You wouldn't go say some of the horrific things I've seen said about Lamar Jackson to his face ever. You'd get your face beat in.
Right.
And you wouldn't say it to the average Joe on the street. If you meet a guy in a bar and you start talking sports, are you talking BS like this? No. You're having, like, it can get heated, but you're not disparaging people's humanity.
I do have friends that would talk to people like that at a bar.
And they would get their face smashed in sometimes or do some smashing.
Right.
But either way.
I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I'm a lover, not a fighter, Andy.
You're not that guy. You're not that guy, K-Man.
So, I mean, the bottom line is this. It's a 6:30 start time, Andy, which I'm fine with. I mean, the Bills start at 6:30 the rest of the way if they get to the Super Bowl. So that's how it is. We look at the game, Andy, and it's the Bills +1 as the home team.
And I've seen it 1.5 on some sites. And it started, it's funny, right after the game and the Bills won, it was Bills favored by 1.5. And I said, this is going to move around. And some of us media members were talking, it's going to slide Ravens because there's just some sort of mystique about the Ravens right now. And sure enough, it did. And it went quickly. So that means that the smart bettors, the Sharks, are putting their money on the Ravens.
Right.
What does that say? I don't know. It's interesting that they think the Ravens are the team. Because to me, because it's in Buffalo, if the Ravens are favored by 1.5, that means it'd be 3 if the Ravens were home. They'd be favored by 3.
Right.
So it's probably about a pick 'em, maybe a little bit leaning towards the Ravens. But I think there's something different about this Bills squad. I think there's lots of reasons it could or couldn't be. And like I've said 3 or 4 times, the Ravens absolutely can beat the Bills. We've seen it this year. It could happen. But I think the Bills have something different in store.
You know what I keep thinking about, and again, no one wants to hear this, but it's been in my mind because of Alec Anderson and how much attention he's gotten this year. I mean, you pointed out to me the Bills have done that a lot with an extra lineman out there. But it seems like Alec Anderson is taking things to a next level where your average fan notices him during games.
And I'll take some credit for that with my feature story early in the season.
You absolutely should. But I go back to years ago during a Patriots-Ravens divisional round game where the Patriots were screwing around with the Ravens on who was the eligible player and who wasn't, to a point where the extra guy was coming in, but they had, like, Shane Vereen out wide, but he was the ineligible player to go. So he had a cornerback on him, but the guy lined up on the line was the eligible receiver. They used a tight end, their blocking tight end, who was actually a tackle, but because of the formation, screwed with Harbaugh's. Like, I remember Harbaugh, and I'm not saying do the same thing. Obviously, he's aware of that and looking at that, but do something with Alec Anderson and shuttling in and out as who's the eligible receiver and who is not.
Well, remember after the first New England game and the Bills kind of walked their way to a win?
Yeah.
And Josh Allen said, we're riding that line of showing too much, knowing that we probably aren't going to get the 1 seed. And I think they've got some things still out there.
Yeah.
This is the time to use it.
Right.
Right? Put it all out there.
I mean, it's win or go home at this point. So if it's in the bag of tricks, don't save it hoping you get to the AFC Championship game.
How about special teams? How big of a concern is that to you? That is an X factor to me.
So you had, 2 fake punts over 3 weeks go against them. And I know Codrington looks like he's going to be good to go. I'd like Shakir back there. I understand you can't have him back there, and Codrington is, a really good return guy. Tyler Bass is still a concern.
Could come down to that kind of a play.
Well, when we get to our final pick, Andy, I don't know which way I'm going to go yet, but Tyler Bass is involved in my final score pick.
Okay.
Over under, Andy, is 51.5.
I'm going to go over. I think that even if it's 27-24, you're probably pushing towards the over there.
I'm going over too.
Yeah.
And this is what I just came up with while we've been talking. You're probably not going to like it. I think the Bills might have some red zone issues and be trailing in this one late. Ravens sitting at 28 points. I think Tyler Bass kicks a field goal to win it right as time expires.
Okay.
This is a white knuckle, hold on to, the seat of your pants game. In real time, I flip-flopped in my head from thinking that the Ravens would win like 28-17 to getting myself in a spot where the Bills' offense is so good, even if it's a tight battle throughout the day, it ends up something like 30-28.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the ballpark. I'm thinking like 35-31, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
And the Bills get a win.
How about an X factor in this game? This is something we haven't done all season. I figured it's the playoffs. Let's add a little something to it.
That's a good question. I'm going to go with our buddy Dawson Knox. Offensively,
Playoff Dawson Knox, yeah.
Playoff Dawson Knox. And how about defensively? I'm going to say it's Ed Oliver.
Ed Oliver needs to.
If he has a game he's capable of and gets Lamar moving around and forces him into some sacks and doesn't allow Lamar to sneak up through the middle and take off, that's going to go a long way to the Bills slowing things down. It would also help, too, if he doesn't get blown off the ball and doesn't create massive lanes for Derrick Henry.
I'm going to go Von Miller.
Okay. I thought of that, too. That popped into my head.
I'm visualing like a strip sack at some point.
For Von Miller.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be something.
I know.
If Von Miller is a hero of this game.
And, I'm riding the Mac Hollins thing. Special teams, sick hit.
He's awesome,
Gets
dude.
Gets that catch, and
It's
then
just fun.
And the other thing I'm going to say is penalties.
Okay.
Pre-snap penalties. Need a clean game. I know the Ravens get a lot of penalties too, so got to be clean.
I can buy that.
And that's what so there's how I've talked myself in.
So we flip-flopped you here.
Yeah.
It sounded, before we started this podcast and during, that the Bills were going to get rocked.
Yeah. I don't. We might end the podcast, and I might be driving home and jump back into that space. But
if Derrick Henry has 200 yards rushing, it's certainly a possibility.
But I got psyched up with the guys that are in the lineup. It's like a healthy Bills team against a healthy Ravens team.
That's what I'm thinking, man.
And that's what it comes down to. 3 and out, Andy. Before we go, let's take a look at some of the other games. We don't need to look at the spreads or anything, but obviously Texans at Chiefs. Do the Texans have a chance to pull off this upset?
No. I just don't see it. I've heard a lot of talk about that, especially from hopeful Bills fans who might want to see Houston and then the Rams in the Super Bowl and go through Baltimore and then Houston and then the Rams, teams that beat them during the season. I don't see it. The way the Chiefs both are rested and their championship medal and the way that they play in big spots, I just don't see it for Houston. And they're beat up. Like, they don't have Tank Dell. They don't have Diggs. I just have a hard time seeing a way where they do that. Now, they played really well against the Chargers,
Right.
but I don't see it against the Chiefs.
My dad always brings up rest versus rust when it comes to this kind of situation. I've been saying all year that the Chiefs are vulnerable this year. I do see if the Texans come out with the perfect game, and the Chiefs have done nothing for 2 weeks at this point. I mean, they've practiced and they've done all this stuff, but I don't know, man. There's something to me with the one bye week's fine, but sitting around for 2 weeks waiting for a game. If Houston can come out and get off to a decent start and get ahead of them, it's the Chiefs haven't put up they haven't reached 30 points the entire season, I don't think.
I just don't have any faith that Houston is going to rise to that occasion. And I could be proven wrong, but I just think the Chiefs, even if it's close, will do what they have to do to win.
We'll go to the other side, Eagles-Rams. I mean, I've been high on the Rams since they beat the Bills. I was like, don't let the Rams in the postseason. They could do something. I didn't think the Vikings stood a chance against the Rams back during that Monday night game. How Sam Darnold played against the Lions at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You know, you watched it and you looked at the moment was just kind of too big for the guy right there. And Matt Stafford he looks like he's clicking on all cylinders right now.
That loss by the Bills to the Rams looks okay at the moment.
Right.
The Rams are playing really well. They've got a championship coach. They've got a good quarterback to where if he's kept clean, he can make every throw on the field. And they've got two great receivers. And looks like their young line is coming along. Jared Verse looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rams, I don't trust Philly for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, even when they win, it's weird. And it doesn't feel like – because they're not getting great quarterback play out of Hurts right now.
Right.
Saquon's awesome. And Hurts has the capability, and they've got weapons. And their defense is legit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Eagles' defense is really good. But there's just something about this Rams team. They're hot right now.
Lions, Commanders.
I don't know what to make of that one.
Commanders, it's a good story, but the Lions just...
You think the pumpkin's coming for Jaden Daniels?
I do.
Yeah.
With the home fit, hey, the good thing is there's only one indoor game this weekend. I hate the indoor games. Can't stand it.
You sound like Terry Pagula.
I am.
No dome in Buffalo. Football's played outdoors.
I knew I liked that guy for some reason. That guy gets it.
I mean, I really like what the Commanders are doing. They don't have a ton of stars, but Jaden Daniels is awesome. He's really good. He's clutch.
Yep.
I've always liked Terry McLaurin. Our buddy John Scott will remember we went to the Senior Bowl. I said, look at Terry McLaurin. Like, I really like him when he was coming out of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I think they took him in the third round. I wanted the Bills to get him, and I thought he would be a good fit here. But other than that, they don't have a ton of stars.
Right. I think it ends there. Andy, how awesome would it be, Deion Sanders to coach the Dallas Cowboys?
I would hate it.
I would love it as someone who hates the Cowboys.
Right. Growing up, there were three teams I hated.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys,
Yep.
the Steelers, and the Patriots. And I hate this. I hate talking about the Cowboys.
But wouldn't it be?
They'd be so it'd be nonstop. It'd be the number one thing.
That is true.
If they're good or bad.
Right. I didn't think it's like, what was it? Colorado had a loss to somebody during the regular season, and all the announcers were talking about was the Colorado team, not the team winning because of Deion Sanders and his kid.
And if they stink and the media calls them out, then Deion is going to go on this revenge thing with the media. And
right.
Oh, God, what a circus that would be. And that would be so Dallas.
And I'd love it to backfire if they did it and just...
But they'll still talk about it ad nauseum. I'd rather they just fade off into obscurity. I know it'll never happen. But to America's team, they haven't won a playoff game or a big game or been to the deep in the playoffs in how long? good riddance, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Stick to your 1970s
Bills are America's team.
nostalgia and that crap of the early 90s. They haven't been good since, really. Like, they've had good teams occasionally. They've underachieved the last several years.
Yep.
I am so sick of the Cowboys. If we
Well,
never talked about them again, it would be too soon.
I'm glad I brought it up then.
Yep.
Wedding Crashers, Andy, one of my favorite scenes is the flag football scene or tag football. Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does. That just sticks in my head. And then I was saying to myself, wings and football. That's what Buffalo does. So I'm like, wings or crab cakes, Andy? I'm a seafood kind of guy.
They have
But
a
if
nice shrimp Caesar on the menu.
Do like a good shrimp Caesar, as a matter of fact.
Or a shrimp quesadilla.
If you're doing a food battle head to head, crab cakes versus wings, I think wings win every time.
Yes, because you wouldn't just eat crab cakes all the time. Wings, and specifically like buffalo style medium wings, that flavor is on everything, right?
Yeah.
You don't eat Old Bay and crab cakes and remoulade sauce.
You can make wings with Old Bay on them.
I've seen that, right? I Baltimore's food is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed going trips to Baltimore. I had great food while I was there. I got crab cakes. I think I had a crab cake Benedict for breakfast one morning
Damn, dude.
with the hollandaise, and so
Ooh,
good.
That sounds good.
You're gonna make one this weekend. Go to Wegmans.
Wegmans has good crab cakes.
Right. Pick up a crab cake and some hollandaise sauce, little English muffin.
Make my own hollandaise.
Yeah. No, you won't.
No.
But wings, I mean, that's like American bar food.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I love a good crab cake. I love anything out of the ocean, but except for eel. Like sushi with eel in it, I won't touch.
No, why?
It just seems gross to me.
Hmm.
But I'm that way with guacamole and other such foods that I've never had but just look gross.
I would never know because you and I have known each other for more than 20 years. I rarely see you eat. I just hear stories because you don't eat publicly.
I know. Apparently that's a bad thing.
No, it's just you. Like,
I went through this phase where I just thought eating is gross. Like I literally went through stuffing stuff in your mouth with crumbs all. I was like, I'd rather just do that by myself. Like going out on dates for me, like taking someone out to dinner. I mean, you've been with chicken Caesar salad over in London, England, instead of having fish fry.
These dudes wanted to go to TGI Fridays in London, of all places. And I'm like, I'm going to a pub.
Yeah.
See you, suckers.
All right, let's wrap things up. Bills, Ravens, 6:30.
Can't wait.
Sunday. I think time's going to start to speed up at this point. Monday, Tuesday, we're slow. Today, the teams get back to work, and then it'll speed up over the next couple of days.
The good thing is there's football Saturday, because if there wasn't NFL football Saturday, you'd be
Right.
like, it would drag,
Yeah,
which is how it'll be the championship weekend,
right.
whoever makes it.
100%. So, win or lose, Buffalo End Zone postgame show. Me, Andy, Stevie Johnson will be there.
On TV, right after the game.
Yeah, need a win, Andy, because with this 6:30 start time, I don't want to deal with locker room cleanout the next day
Yeah.
as people who cover the team, because that's a quick to sleep, quick back up, and get back to work. I know that's going to happen eventually, no matter how this goes, but I'm not quite ready for it now.
Let's go on a ride here. Come on.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Just for my selfish purposes, let's just keep covering game day football. It's fun.
I was going to say that too. Selfishly speaking, I've been doing this for 39 years.
He said to me earlier, we were talking about something that happened at work, and he goes, in my 35 years of doing this, I've never done.
I screwed up. It's 25.
It's roughly 25, right? Yeah.
I want to cover a Super Bowl. I want to go to a Super Bowl. I want to go to Media Day. I want to do all that fun stuff.
Well,
So selfishly,
let's do
the
it.
Bills have to win.
You hear that, Josh Allen? Kevin Carroll wants to cover a Super Bowl.
Do it for Kevin. That's what I want to hear. We're going to do this one for Kevin.
You hear him go, 1, 2, 3, K-Man.
All right, we're going to head out. We'll see you after the game on Sunday. Thanks for joining us, everyone.